And we are live. How's it going, everyone? Excited to be on here today. I'm joined by an NFT project looking to leverage networking effects of tight knit communities. So I think it's very apparent that one, I'm referring to an NFT project, but they're more than this. So just to cut through some of the context here, our guest on today will be OpenFren, which has a really heavyweight team with a track record of successful entrepreneurship. And they're really looking to build a platform that incentivizes partnerships and brings networks together. So today I'm joined by Jaber Jalil, who was on the Forbes 30 under 30 list and has built various startups, most notably SyncSpot, which had over a sixth of the Fortune 500 companies as its customer base. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring Jaber on and we can get through what really OpenFriend is. How's it going, man?
Hey, doing great, and thanks for having me. Really glad to be on this channel. I love what you're doing at Solana News.
Yeah, 100%. And I echo the excitement as well. It's super cool to see what you guys are building and really the focus that you are taking. So, really, just to start, can you outline what Open Friends is and the goal behind it for anyone who maybe doesn't know?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So, a bit of background. So, the team and I have spent our entire career brokering partnerships for the world's biggest companies. I'm talking Disney, Amazon, Warner Music. And one of the most frustrating challenges we faced was how hard it was to find information about prospective partners. And that made planning these partnerships really difficult. And that's because there were so many things we did not know about a partner until we were either deep in negotiations or have actually started working with them. And what's interesting is that, this wasn't a problem that we just faced. Many of our peers faced the exact same problem. And it's actually why a lot of partnerships fail. It's because you're going into these agreements pretty blind. And Greg, this might surprise you, but actually, according to Nielsen, almost 400 billion US dollars is lost every single year on partnerships that fail. And so our mission at OpenFren is to make folks as informed as possible about the partners they're looking to work with because the stakes are simply so high on some of these agreements.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to build OpenFren into the number one source of partnership data in the planet. And we're doing this through a platform that crowdsources the data and has an ad to earn model. So, think of OpenFriend as a cross between Yelp and Core of partnerships.
Awesome. Yeah. And when you really lay down the landscape of what partnerships are, how big it is, I don't think a lot of people realize it also really seems to be amplified in this Web3, more open source, collaborative nature that we're seeing in crypto, especially because it's so early on. I mean, you look anywhere and most updates that come out are some sort of partnership, some sort of project looking to leverage, compose, or work together to add value to the ecosystem. So when you start to break it down and explain the context and just how partnerships play out and also the difficulty behind them, I think it makes a lot of sense to apply this to Web3, especially to pull in some anecdotal evidence. There have been plenty of partnerships that we have gone through, negotiated, and potentially fell through or didn't end up finishing how they were intended. So I think this whole thing of almost bringing credibility or social credentials, some sort of way to track partnerships and be able to see who is holding them and who is breaking them, I guess, for lack of better terms, I think is really interesting. To yeah.
Yeah, go for it, Greg. Yeah, no, so Greg, continue.
Yeah, I was just gonna move forward. I just had to add that on there because I think you really put it into scope there. What was the beginnings of OpenFren itself? When was it decided that you guys were really going to move forward with this and double down on this idea?
So, yeah, for the past year and a half, we've been experimenting with different ideas in the world of partnerships. Different way to solve the problems that exist today. Because it's such a huge space, then, and as you rightly mentioned, such an important part of business today, especially in Web3. And so, as I mentioned, the team and I, we're a team that have been brokering these deals for a very long time. And, you know, as you mentioned at the beginning, Mo and I, we built this award-winning agency that brokered partnerships with the world's biggest companies. What's interesting is, prior to SyncSpot, Mo, who's our CTO, he also built out Goldman's OTC exchange, which when he left was trading 40 billion US dollars a year. Puneet, who joins us from Amazon, he was a senior exec at Alexa and led their partnerships. But more importantly, Puneet also has a ton of experience scaling data platform like ours. He helped Zomato scale into building one of the biggest data and review platforms in the planet. And Jay, he used to sit on the board of our last company, and he is one of the founders of a company called VideoAmp in LA, which as of last month has valued at more than $1.4 billion. So, as you can see, over our careers, we've been doing a lot of these partnerships. And really what happened was we were experimenting with a number of different crowdsourcing models. And it really clicked for us early this year when we launched our MVP of OpenFren and just saw this immediate demand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially when it came to the contribution model. And this is one of the things I love about Web3 is that because it's so community focused, because the members that you bring into the platform in a way are stakeholders, right? The incentive to contribute, the incentive to be a good contributor to the platform, to the community, is just so incredibly high. And so that's kind of where it really clicked for us with OpenFren.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And that just is what also gets me really excited. This whole idea that I hinted at a little bit in the beginning, that you guys had a heavyweight team. It's so awesome to see talent coming from really big tech or other even startups, entrepreneur endeavors, and seeing that talent come into crypto is so exciting. And we've seen more and more of it. Especially I've been jumping around to some of these Solana based hacker houses, and this is the sentiment that's echoed across all of things. So I think that's just a really cool sidebar and something that we will see more and more for in Web3, but is also super bullish in the sense that there are a lot of smart people leaving what seem like cushy jobs to come build in Web3 because they see the innovation. And we started to get a small sneak peek into the platform there. You talked about how people are incentivized to contribute, crowdsourcing, and really taking this idea of brokering partnerships. Can we get an idea of what the platform looks like? How can you interact with it? And just the basic rundown?
Yeah, would love to do that. Let me just share my screen.
Perfect. I'll add you on here. So yeah, I took a brief look yesterday. Into my understanding, there's a profile that people can create, and then the real core of it is being able to search and look at reviews that are all indexed, and then also being able to write your own reviews.
Yeah.
Let me know
Let
if
me
you're having
just,
trouble.
yeah, just the Mac sometimes has.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like Chrome has suddenly lost access to screen recording. I'm like, oh my god,
Yeah,
not
that's
now,
annoying.
why now? Just give me a second to see if I can get that. That's the same thing. The same at Mac, right? It's so locked down where it's great sometimes, but then it's, you know.
Yeah. No, I know exactly what you're going through. That happened to me the other day in a meeting. I'm like, oh, it might even make
So
you like, it might try to make you exit out of Chrome as well. I wouldn't
yeah,
be
it
surprised.
actually is asking to exit out Chrome. I'm just wondering if I do that, I might lose access to the stream.
You'll be able to pop back in. You can just
Okay,
jump in. I'll hold the fort down real quick.
you hold the fort down. All right. Sorry, folks. I'm streaming in. It's the inevitability of any kind of stream. Right, there's going to be some sort of technical issue. It's just some slow, isn't it?
Definitely.
All right. Let me just make sure it's there. Yeah. Authenticate. Excellent. Hold down the fort. Maybe tell a few jokes.
Yeah, definitely. I'm already taking notes to myself here. Make sure if I'm going to ask for a demo or a preview to have them share the screen beforehand. It's a
Yeah.
learning process.
Learning process.
Awesome. And what I was just saying there for anyone who may have just popped in, I see Norman is coming in. We were just going over a little bit of the beginnings of OpenFriend, what it really is, and now we're going to go and get hands-on with the platform there. Jaber had to enable his screen sharing screens for Google Chrome, and we're really going to jump into the platform and see how this helps people really get into partnerships, taking from a lot of their past serial entrepreneurship, specifically how to broker partnerships. It looks like he is now back, so pull him up. Hopefully we're good to go now.
We should be good to go. All right.
Lovely.
Can you see it?
We're in.
Great. So look, we launched this MVP very recently, and very quickly we have over 40,000 contributors, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, for reference, I think PitchBook had about 50,000
Okay.
contributors. So PitchBook, if you don't know, is kind of this like platform for investment data. They acquired a few years ago for $200 million. So the fact that with this MVP we're already close to hitting PitchBook numbers is just insane. So on this MVP, what you can do is you can search and see what partnerships a company has done. So you can go and say, hey, Nike, let's see what deals Nike is doing. And so you get this almost index of partnerships that they're doing, right? You get to see when they're announcing these partnerships throughout the year. You get to see where they're actually doing these partnerships. And already this information is really valuable as a user, as a company, because it starts to help you think about, well, when should I approach Nike, right? When are they be busy? When are they not going to be busy? Which locations and regions are they doing a lot of deals in? What kind of deals are they doing? And what's interesting is as you go into these specific partnerships, you get to see, okay, all right, I know Courtney here was a key person on this deal, right? So you get to see, Courtney here, you get to reach out to him. You also get to, read reviews about people that actually worked with Nike. And so all this information is really valuable in helping you make the right decisions about how you approach and do these partnerships.
Yeah.
And so, and really this is just the beginning, right? And the idea here is that users can either add their own partnerships that they've done onto the platform, but also we're building OpenFren in a way where you don't have to be someone in the world of partnerships to contribute. So a great example of that is for every single one of these deals that our system is scraping, you get to find the actual original source. And what that allows folks to do is, come in, see what data has been added, similar to kind of like Wikipedia, and be like a Wikipedia editor and be like, hey, I actually read the source and actually this needs a slight adjustment, right?
Okay.
Maybe
Yeah.
the description needs a slight adjustment. Maybe I have some foreign language skills and I can convert this into another language, maybe Bahasa Indonesia, or I can convert it into Bengali or Hindi, etc. So there's plenty of opportunities for people that aren't necessarily just full-on partnership professionals to also contribute to the platform and earn PTR for doing so. And so kind of this is what the platform looks like today. But what's really interesting is some of the features that we have that we're building. And I know we'll talk a bit about that later, but I just want to, quickly highlight 3 things that I'm really excited about. So
Definitely.
the first is we're going to start building identity into the platform in the form of an NFT collection.
Yeah.
So that's going to be great because it's going to really change how you build persistent identity and reputation. We're going to be also building community quests. And actually, one of the things I'm most excited about is we're pushing out a mobile app that's kind of like Pokemon Go for partnerships. But we could talk about that later.
Yeah, that actually sounds cool. So yeah, just to jump in here, and I think a big thing that I'm curious about is, one, OpenFren has seen massive success in the sense of how you mentioned the contributors. And I think we touched on this a little bit. A big thing that this massive contribution can be attributed to is the fact that in Web3, one, people are much more incentivized because they have some sort of stake in a lot of these projects. But then secondly, I think it's also a way how incentives are aligned on OpenFriends. So I think it would be really cool to, one, just kind of break down how users are incentivized to interact with the platform, and then even just elaborate a little bit more after that what the thoughts of the really NFT profiles are there. So bit of a 2-part question. We can take a brief pause in the beginning, but I think it's just notable to talk about how users are incentivized to interact with the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Just checking in. Can you see the slides on my screen?
Yep.
Great. So let's talk about the ecosystem. So think of the tokens as the thing that powers our transaction and our commerce layer. So when someone adds value to the community, whether that's translating information on the site, whether that's adding new partnerships, whether that's making sure the partnerships that have been submitted are correct, whether you're acting as a moderator and reviewing new information coming into the platform, right? Whenever you're adding value to the community and the platform, you earn PTR, partner coin. Now, whenever you extract value, so whether it's you need this information on partnerships to kind of help you with decision making, so you're kind of downloading data from the platform, you're setting quests and things like that, you're spending PTR. So that's kind of talking about the token ecosystem, and you're going a bit more deeper into that, right? And what that actually looks like. That earn model is, hey, adding new data, right? Companies, partnerships, the data cleaning I talked about. Another interesting thing that's going to be coming in the future is completing quests. So a quest could be, hey, I'm going to offer you, 10,000 PTR if you can go into your local Target and send me pictures of the cereal aisle so I can see what are the most popular or in-stock cereals in that specific Target, right? That's an example of a quest. So completing quests gets you PTR. And then another thing that's, if you're increasing the community size, so if you're following our socials, you're inviting people to join our ecosystem, you earn PTR because you're adding value. Now, when you're extracting value, so unlocking partnership data, maybe you want your company to be a sponsored result, right? When let's say I'm searching for Nike and you want to make sure Adidas also appears as a sponsored result, right? You can do that, right? Maybe you want to, as I mentioned earlier, actually create those quests. So go to Target, send me these pictures, or hey, can someone look at my pitch deck and spend half an hour, like, teaching me about what should be in that pitch deck? That's an
Yeah.
example of extracting value spent PTR. And just a final thing on just the tokenomics here is, when you think about the way that this is structured, what's really interesting is that when you look at the history of the internet and the 1% rule, right, which is essentially, we know that people that extract value, or people who consume content, tend to far outweigh folks that contribute. What that means from a pure token perspective is that buyers will always outnumber earners. And what that means is that there will always be overwhelming buying pressure on that PTR token, because for every one token that's earned, probably 99 tokens will be bought. So
Okay.
that's just quickly on the tokens.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting, especially this 1% rule slide you have pulled up. It runs back in parallel with that idea. I don't know the exact numbers, but if you look at Wikipedia contributors, it's a very small amount of people. So kind of banking on what we've seen in the past, that data consumption, there's always going to be more demand for, I think is interesting and helps to answer that question. How can these users be incentivized? But then it also makes sense that these users are incentivized because they are adding value to whoever is looking for the data, whether it's in regards of partnerships or fixing up a pitch deck and giving reviews. All of those sort of things do add value, and it's really just creating a token that can facilitate an easy transfer of it.
Exactly. It's a fantastic utility token. And I haven't touched upon the NFTs yet, which is another
Yeah.
really exciting thing in the platform.
So it'd be great to even just dive right into the NFTs. We touched a little bit on the token. You started to talk about the NFTs a little bit. We got into the profile. So even just diving in on that, explaining it like we're coming right from the beginning. I actually haven't looked too far into the NFT collection. I got caught up on the token and the platform mainly.
Yeah. So first thing is, when we build things here at OpenFren, we're like, our first question is always, why and how does this feature help us in our underlying mission and serving our community and members? And so for the NFT collection, from day one, we wanted to build something that provided tangible value and utility. And so the way NFTs are going to be integrated into our platform is in two ways. The first, it acts as an access token. So a way for members to access specific benefits on the platform. So that could be discounts on data. That could be boosts to the earnings that you earn based on the type of data that you contribute. It can also even be potentially some really other exciting things that we'd like to do with the token. Obviously, pending sign off from the legal department to make sure it's all compliant regulation. But some really interesting platform benefits you can access, but also interesting community events that you're able to access. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. The second thing is we're going to have two standards of NFTs. We're going to have what we call standard NFTs, that is with the supply is dynamic, and premium NFTs where it's fixed supply.
Okay.
Now, for both of those, these are NFTs that can evolve. And this kind of dives into the whole identity aspect of the NFTs, where they evolve based on how you contribute to both the platform and community. And what I mean by that is it monitors how you're behaving or contributing. So, for example, if I'm contributing a lot of marketing data or spending a lot of time in the marketing sub-communities, the NFT will eventually evolve into a marketing character class. Now, if I'm spending a lot of time looking at investment data, downloading investment data, your character will probably evolve into some sort of venture capital investor. And actually, this little pirate goblin that you're seeing here is actually an example of what that VC character class looks like.
Okay.
So that's what's interesting about this evolving identity. Now, talking about some of the more interesting perks and utilities that come with the platform. First thing that I'm really excited to talk about is this. We're calling it internally actually the deal room, which is this kind of like executive members club, where one of the key benefits that a NFT holder gains is access to a club where you can interact with folks that are, VP or C-suite executives at multi-billion-dollar companies. And it's going to be folks from a range of industries. We're actually, nailing down the right founding partners right now. And it's everything from VC investors to executives at major exchanges, right? Media companies, banks, tech companies, and so many other industries that we're going to be announcing soon. And what's interesting is that this kind of like members club, right? The deal room that we're building, we can see from other collections, such as the collection, right? Proof from the Proof Collective, right? On OpenSea, that this type of private members club where we get access to a high quality network is really valued by that NFT community. If I remember correctly, the floor price for the Proof Collective is 53 Ethereum at the moment, which is, to do the math in my head, about $160,000.
Yeah.
So we're going to be providing massive utility here to the folks that will be joining our premium NFTs.
Yeah, I think that's super exciting. And there's a lot of different things going on with NFTs, but I think one of the important things, if people are creating a community, there is true value behind it, whether or not it's something in regards closer to gaming, but I would say more so in this instance, and in most instances, it's in regards to the community. So being able to take what you guys have learned and leverage that from brokering partnerships and really bringing together a network of people that has a lot of value in it is super exciting for the NFT collection. I'm curious here, and I think it was touched on a bit when we went over the token and then we went into the NFT independently. But I'm curious, when thinking about both of these different parts of the ecosystem that provide utility, how do you balance the contributors with PTR and balance the tokenomics on that side, but then also with the NFTs? What are the thoughts about how to properly spread the utility across these two different parts of the ecosystem?
Yeah, and that's a great question, right? Because the balance is absolutely critical. So, when we talked about there being two classes of NFTs, part of that was for that balancing reason. So the thing to consider here is we want someone that's a contributor to the community to have an NFT, right?
Yeah.
The challenge with that is, well, you don't, you're always going to be adding new members every single day, right? We have 43,000 today. I mean, gosh, who knows how high that can become? And so that obviously is a very dilutive model from an NFT perspective. And so that's why what we decided to do was separate the two. So we would have a model where it's a dynamic supply, where it can scale with the user base. And these are NFTs that folks will mint on the platform using PTR. And we'll give the folks to a limited set of benefits. Those benefits, would include, some sort of PTR boosts, some limited events. But probably the most important thing is it's probably more of an identity token, right? Not necessarily an access token. So it's all about giving folks an evolving identity based on how they behave in the platform, right? Now, for the premium NFTs, where we're going to have these kind of access to these, private member clubs, exclusive events, early access to content, and all these like really powerful platform benefits, which like really powerful boosts, right? Ability to skip evolution sometimes to get discounts and data. That's going to be a fixed supply. Um, so we're talking about for each collection, and there'll be subsequent collections we introduce new characters, less than 1,500, right?
Mhm.
So, and the key things with these premium NFTs is that it's going to be fixed supply, and it's going to be something that can only be purchased on our partner exchange. And we're going to be announcing our partner exchanges very, very soon. I think people will be excited about it. Um, and that allows us to have a, I guess, tokenomics for the NFT where it's going to be deflation in value, right? So those NFTs actually go up in value because it's a fixed supply, B, very distinct benefits and access to a community that no one else will get access to. Um, at the same time, the standard NFTs allows to have an identity system that scales. So that's kind of how we've approached this with NFTs by separating them into two classes.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and then also gives the opportunity for really heavy contributors to upgrade their NFTs as well and be incentivized to utilize the platform and really add value, add data on these partnerships. So, I think we went and got a really good overview of OpenFren in general. I'm going to circle back and obviously ask some questions about what's coming up in the future. But I think this is a good spot to kind of step back a little bit and just on regards to NFTs and crypto in general. I'm just curious, what was the thought process of why building on Solana and how has it been so far?
So when Mo, our CTO, was playing about with different technologies, and Mo's been playing about with. He's one of the early actually contributors to Ethereum way back in the day.
Okay.
He made a tragic mistake of selling a lot of Ethereum at $5, thinking, "Wow, I made a huge profit." But that's a story for another day. But we were looking at a first from a pure technical perspective, a layer one chain that could support a large amount of transactions at a low cost. The second was kind of just the capacity to take on lots of transactions. You know, we're very bullish that OpenFren will be growing to a platform where we're going to be needing potentially, hundreds or maybe millions of transactions, maybe in a day, single day.
Uh-huh.
And so finding a chain that can accommodate that was very important. Um, and so Solana were basically, and obviously there's a few others, were big, huge ticks on that one. And then another thing that we wanted to consider was we wanted to be on a layer one chain where we felt confident that there's going to be long lasting value, and more importantly, that they're going to be around for the long term. And so, looking at Solana's momentum, looking at the support that they have in the ecosystem, and even if you look at, like, for example, in the NFT space, right? They're second, right? They're second for transaction volume in the NFTs, only second to Ethereum. So all those things combined made Solana a really compelling choice for us as a layer one chain.
Definitely. And I think this even just loops back to what I was talking about earlier with the hacker houses and seeing the amount of conviction behind the chain and who's building on it is just really exciting and sets that stage for having longevity, being robust and scalable. So definitely exciting, especially as we see Solana NFTs starting to pick back up again. And this whole idea of opening up capital from Ethereum onto Solana with OpenSea and tons of other stuff. I think it is a really exciting time for NFTs and social projects on Solana. and really just staying kind of high level, but back towards OpenFren a bit. This was something that I've kind of been hinting at, but just curious to ask again, how do you really build a strong community while having this problem of somewhat having mercenary users, in the sense that users are incentivized to contribute? How do you make sure there's not a ton of churn in a model like this, similar to what we see in DeFi with liquidity providers and incentivizing that?
I think that's a great question, right? That's one of the things you want to consider is, whenever you're building a platform, you don't just want to attract users. You want to attract the right users, the right members, and one of the most important things that we're working on, we always work on, is creating the right incentive system. So when it comes to, and we're rolling this out with OpenFren Earn, when it comes to the rewards that a member will earn, it's actually going to be a dynamic system where we're going to be incentivizing the addition of data and content that will be more focused on folks that have unique partnership knowledge. So, it'd be really hard to contribute unless you have that knowledge. That's the first thing, right? Design that incentive system. The second thing is when folks do contribute, one of the systems that we're going to be implementing is what we call kind of almost a deposit system. So what that means is that, let's say I'm updating an entry on Nike. You almost have to stake an element of PTR when you put out that submission. And if the submission is not accepted because there's 5 other submissions, but but yours wasn't chosen, but it was a fine submission, then you get your PTR back. If it gets chosen, you then get a multiplier on the PTR that you offered as a deposit. And then if it was kind of spam, which is obviously always a concern in Web3, you lose the PTR. And so that's one of the ways where you incentivize good behavior through this kind of almost like deposit system. Think about it as like the security deposit that you put in an apartment when you rent it.
Yeah.
It ensures that you don't mess up the house, right? It's the same thing here.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. Also, just circles back to that idea of what we've seen in the past, right? That 1% of people tend to be contributors and the 99%. I would argue that might be a little extreme, but somewhere in those realms, the majority of demand always seems to be on the side of consuming the data. So just like asking that, because I think it's very important to obviously think about these things, seeing how some of these incentives have played out in the past. But I do think it's exciting looking at how you guys have attacked the problem, really thought about how you're going to build in these incentives and create a robust community that is actually adding value, which is probably one of the more challenging parts. And really here, I'm starting to get down to the bottom. I think I have a much better understanding of OpenFren. Super excited for what is to come. And overall, just the team that you guys have brought and the solution that you're looking for, I think is really cool, considering that this is an apparent problem, especially as we are in this Web3 and more open source and collaborative environment. I guess at this point, what I would just do is open up the stage a little bit and push this final question of just what are you excited about coming up, maybe mid and long term. A couple things. It can be something general about the market. It would be awesome to hear a little bit more about OpenFren as well.
Yeah, so I'll start on OpenFren and I'll talk a bit more about exciting things happening in the market.
Perfect.
So from the OpenFren perspective, in the short term, I'm really excited about this NFT collection that we're going to be pushing out. We have an amazing partner, and just from an art perspective, I love the art that the art team is doing. So you might not know this, Greg, but the art team working on this, they previously worked at the same studio that produced Rick and Morty season 5. And so
Okay.
for all the Rick and Morty fans out there, you know you're in pretty safe hands when it comes to the animation and the graphics that's being built here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really excited this NFT collection because uh, not only is going to be really exciting in terms of like introducing an entirely new paradigm to the platform, it's going to be really interesting to see how folks really start to create their own unique identities in the platform through it. So that's what I'm excited about in the short term. In the long term, I think I mentioned earlier about this Pokemon Go for partnerships.
Yeah,
So the idea is that we're going to be pushing out this app that will allow people to kind of take pictures of things in the real world and kind of complete quests. And that's really exciting because we'll start to get some really exciting data into the ecosystem that probably is not available anywhere on the internet. And it's going to be fun. There's going to be a bit of AR involved, and it's just so far internally just been a really fun project. So
definitely.
that's kind
That
of,
sounds
yeah.
Yeah, no, that sounds super interesting. And I think the whole idea is really the power that this platform can enable to get contributors involved. I mean, we've already seen crazy feats that contributors can do. And like that same example that I keep banking on is the idea of Wikipedia, how there's not too many contributors, but being able to incentivize it when value is actually being added. And I think the hard part that we've kind of got on in this live stream is the hard part is incentivizing the right people who are actually adding value, what you guys are thinking about. But if that can be done well and sustainably, I think it's super exciting to see what can really be achieved, especially when applying it to something like partnerships and taking your guys' past experience of brokering them and applying them to this, as I keep saying, open source Web3 and collaborative space.
Yeah, no, I think it's exciting. And, to answer your question about what I'm excited about in just general, the Web3 ecosystem, I think I'm going to probably say something that everyone is probably quite excited about. I'm still a big believer in Ethereum, and so Ethereum V2, I think, is going to be a game changer. So I'm, of course, really excited about that. But there's also another project I'm excited about. So there's a company called Golden. They're essentially building Wikipedia. They start off as a Web3 project. It's a pretty great company. They're launching a Web3 version of their Golden platform, and so I'm waiting for that launch because I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that's super sweet. I think there's just so much going on now, even in the realms. Like most of these things are partnerships, which I think is exciting and very on topic. But it seems like market's been picking up again. People have been going risk on. So I think it's super exciting, especially to just watch as more innovation comes into the space, especially on chains like Solana. I am going to say I think this really does wrap it up for me here, Jaber. But besides that, I just want to thank you for coming on. It's been a great time and just great hearing about what you guys are building and specifically how you're taking past problems that you've solved, but looking to innovate them even more and apply those community aspects.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Greg, on behalf of the OpenFren team, thanks for hosting us here at Solana News. We absolutely love what you folks are doing at Web3 Wires and Solana News. And uh, when I spoke to one of your colleagues when Rishi reached out, he mentioned that the whole focus of Web3 Wires is to focus really on those product updates and the products that people bring to market. And I just love that approach.
Yeah, it's awesome. We definitely try to do our best at that. There's so many users here that are looking for these updates that come out really quickly. And it's cool because a lot of them are partnerships and fall into that realm. But overall, it was an amazing time on here. And just want to thank everyone for coming out and definitely go check out OpenFren if you would like to more. What I'll actually go ahead and do is drop their Twitter here in the chat, and then we can also drop it underneath the Twitter posts. So whether you're watching on YouTube or over on Twitter, you can jump over and check out some more resources. Again, super fun time today, Jabir. And until next time, peace out, everybody.